Welcome to AM. My name is Richard Conway, and this is the platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome back to episode 35, and on this episode we speak to my teammate from WBC, the World's Breakfast Club, Karen Hames. And I've known Karen for a number of years, and I've been wanting to get her on the podcast for quite a long time, and we finally got round to sitting down face to face, and that's another first. Sat down face to face and doing an interview, which was fantastic. And although I know Karen very well, like I say, I've known her for a long time, it's amazing that although you think you know someone, it's amazing to find out the incredible stories that they have. And I was fascinated by Karen's background because as she was growing up, at 3 she was diagnosed as being deaf. I think it was due to a bout of German measles. So I think she'd had a bit of a tough time as a kid, and obviously back in the day things weren't as technologically advanced as they are now. But she explains it a lot better than I ever could. So, but fascinating story, and it's something that she's done throughout her life, sport, and to this day she's absolutely brilliant. And we're at the club, we're totally inspired by what she's achieved. So I hope you enjoy that. Well, we're at the end of the Olympics. That was a bit of a disappointment, really. Great Olympics. Especially enjoyed, like I said previously, the triathlon and the cycling. So now I'm watching a bit of the last Grand Tour of the year in the cycling, which is the Vuelta in Spain, and also enjoyed the grand final over in Edmonton this weekend, just gone, where both Olympic champions, male and female, became world champions. I don't think that's ever been done before. That was Heston Blumenthal for the men and Flora Duffy for the women. And it was a great race. And Alex Yee did really well in the men's. He had a terrible swim in the grand final, but his run was absolutely amazing. He was down by well over a minute after they got off the bike, and I think he finished about 25 seconds behind. He had an absolutely stonking 10k run, and he finished, I think, just outside the top 10 in 11th place. So great race. And Sophie Caldwell also did well. I think she came 5th. Pardon me if that's not right. It's either 5th or 7th, I can't remember. But she had a great race, and top Brit there, so fantastic to see her doing so well. What else we've been doing? In about 4 weeks' time, we're supposed to be racing at the ETU Triathlon Sprint Championships over in Valencia, and we've got our hotels booked and we've got the flights booked, but there's still some uncertainty as to what's going to go on with travel, because there's rumours that Spain are going to go back into red. They're amber at the moment. And also some confusion about the tests that you've got to take and which tests you need to take. So we're hanging fire at the minute. So we'll just have to see what happens, because it's not very clear. And I think Boris is pronouncing on the 25th, and then after that we'll probably have a better idea of what's going on. But as of now, we're still going to go. So it'll be nice to get back racing, although I've still got this calf niggle which doesn't seem to want to go away. So I'm just concentrating on biking and swimming at the moment, and we'll see how it carries on. And then I watched Tim O'Donnell, the professional Ironman athlete, and didn't realise that he'd had a heart attack during Challenge Miami back in March. Just seen his YouTube video. I'll give that a watch, the first part anyway. And yeah, it was amazing. He was in the middle of this Challenge Miami race on the bike, not feeling so great, and apparently he had 80% blockage. And he managed to finish the race. Rang his wife up and said he wasn't feeling too great. And then she said, well, ring the doctor up, see what he says. So he rung the doctor up, and the doctor said, get yourself to hospital. So he did, and they found that he had an 80% blockage. So he was operated on, got a stent fitted, and fortunately he lives to tell the tale. And I haven't listened to the other part of it yet, but it was very emotional, the first part that he's put out, and I can testify to physically and mentally it not putting you in a great place, having a heart attack. So, but great to see he's all right, and it'll be interesting to see the second part and see what his thoughts are about carrying on and whether he'll go back to racing or not. Yeah, bit of a shocker, that one, but it just goes to show it doesn't matter how fit you are, even if you've got a great healthy lifestyle, and like I'm sure Tim has, genetics can play a massive part. And then finally, lifestyle hack this week is the benefits of water. I've done quite a lot of research into water over the last few years, so see what you think of that. Very interesting topic. It might give you some food for thought, or if not food for thought, some drink for thought. Anyway, coming up next is Karen's story. Hope you enjoy it. She's a lovely lady, and I'll see you on the other side. Thank you first and foremost for coming on and spending your time with us. Much appreciated. So we'll start off with a little bit about your background and what you used to do growing up as a kid, sporting wise.
Yes, both athletes. So I remember my early memories really of being taken down to King George Stadium in a playpen and told to stay in there and behave while my parents were coaching. I must have been 3 or 4 years old. Yeah. And when my parents were down there coaching, and then obviously when I began to run, I used to join in the coaching sessions at the stadium.
Yeah.
I met my brother as well, and I think that's probably really been cemented from a very early age that running was good for you, and training was good for you. And my parents were sort of semi-celebrities, I suppose, for want of a word, in Grimsby.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of people used to follow their athletic careers. And my mum was, well, in fact, she was one place out for getting to the Melbourne Olympics in 1956.
Wow.
She was Northern Counties 100 and 200 metres champion for a number of years. My father was a cross-country runner, and he used to work at Immingham in the early 50s, 60s, and he used to run to work 13 miles there and 13 miles back. So they were quite photographed. I've got lots of photographs at home of them running in various championships, and locally as well. There's one of my father that springs to mind down Scartha Road, running to work, and he'd only get changed in his suit because he was a shipping clerk in those days. Right. And get changed into his suit, work a day, and then run home 13 miles. It was nothing in those days. So it's always been kind of embedded in a very early age, really, because my parents were both sporty. And consequently, once I got into primary and secondary school, I just enjoyed sport. It was a natural thing. So I think it was slightly because of my disability, if you like, that I wanted to go out there and be number one.
Yeah.
and so that and people, because so probably suffered quite a lot of abuse in the, well, I can remember in the primary school and infant school, where people used to get called deafhead.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, just for those listening, can you just explain what is the disability?
Well,
do you call it a disability?
Yeah.
Do you call it a disability? What's it known as? I mean, you've got to be very careful these days.
I think you have.
What you
label things.
Yeah.
Well, probably not. It was a disability in those days.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm talking in 50s and 60s language here, not up to date.
Yeah.
And it was diagnosed when I was 3, a bilateral hearing impairment,
right,
which was brought on by an episode of German measles.
Oh.
And initially my parents didn't realise what had happened until I started to fall behind at school, and then it went into investigations of what was happening, and take me to see various specialists. In fact, one comes to mind. In fact, I have the letter still that says it was actually a doctor, a local doctor, where my mother took me, and they said that I needed to go. I was pretending to be deaf, and I needed to go and visit a child psychiatrist.
No way.
But fair play to my mum, my parents really. They took me to various specialists. And in fact, the doctor at the time wanted to send me to the Doncaster School for the Deaf. And my mother said, no, she's intelligent, she can go through the state system, but she just needs a bit of support. So that was in the early days. Obviously, children being children, and I stood out differently. And the hearing aids were very different. They were very visual in those days. So I used to have 2 wires coming down the back of my ears, and a great big box hanging on the front of my school jumper. Yeah. So consequently, people used to pull the hearing aids out and think it was funny. Yeah. So you kind of, I don't know what they would call it these days, but bullying. Anyway, it obviously didn't affect me. No. It was just one of those things. Yeah. So when I got into secondary school, primary and secondary school, and obviously I was good at sport. I did most of the sports, athletics, hockey, netball, all the teams in the school. So all of a sudden, sort of my image went up in the eyes of other kids, thinking, "Oh, she's really good at sport."
Yeah. Well, it gives you that platform, then, doesn't it? All right. Yeah. And then because you are good at sport or you're good at something, people look past.
That's right.
What is.
That's right. Absolutely. So that was a way of sort of me showing the world that actually I'm good at sport and I'm not stupid. No. And I have to wear hearing aids to hear. Yeah. That's how. So then I went on to. It's almost sort of. Then went on to play netball for the county and tennis for the county, and I've always been a runner, whether it's being competitive or just to keep fit. Yeah. Not a particularly good one, but sort of.
You don't do too bad.
So it's really been there from the word go.
Yeah. So how did you why tennis and netball then? And not athletics as your mum and dad did?
That was I don't know really. That was I was good at netball, and in fact I did the county trials and got chosen for the county. And I was quite a good tennis player as well. I used to go and play tennis on a regular basis. I'm not sure where the athletics fell down, but like having said that, I still continued on running. And then when I got into my 20s, early 20s, I saw a chap called, well, actually, I was quite a good horse rider as well in those days. So when I was in my early 20s, I saw a chap called Jim Fox win a medal at the modern pentathlon. And so I jumped up to my mother and said, I can do that.
Right.
And so then off I went. So I could already swim.
Yeah.
I was a member of a local swimming club.
Yeah.
I could ride, so that ticked off. I could run, and so I just needed to learn to fence and shoot. So I joined a local fencing club, and then I had a lovely chap who used to come and coach me for the shooting. And it was in a small bore pistol club, and he used to come and do my shooting coaching. And so I then went down to Bracknell to the nationals, and in those days there was not a lot of pentathlon. The pentathlon clubs were mainly down south, so it was all sort of an individual thing really that I did. Is basically off my own back, and on a very amateur basis. But anyway, we all went down there to the nationals, and it was really exciting because after the riding, I was up in first position. Because you get given the horses, and you got 20 minutes.
I've seen in the modern pentathlon, the Olympics. I was watching a bit of that because the Brits did really well, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I didn't realise that you didn't ride your own horse.
No, you don't. No.
How weird's that?
Yeah, we had army horses from the Bracknell, and it's you basically pick a piece of paper out of a hat.
Do you know why that is?
Well, it's supposed to be kudos to your riding ability.
Right. Okay.
So you've got 20 minutes to ride the horse before you go in the ring.
Yeah.
And it's down to your riding ability to be able to communicate to the horse, really, in that very short time. And also there is a little bit of luck, because if you and the horse have a quick relationship where it's listening to you and doing what you ask, then you're more likely to sort of come out.
So what did you do? Give him a lump of sugar?
Give him a lump of sugar.
Before you start.
And have a carrot in the pocket. So that was quite exciting, but then I gradually started to fall down the line once the fencing and I didn't do too bad in the shooting, and the swimming I was okay, but I was probably ended up, and I was about midfield. But a totally enjoyable, brilliant sport, but it does need quite a bit of funding as well. So I didn't. It was probably about 4 years, and then I decided to move on a bit, really.
Yeah. So that was your first foray into multisport, then?
It was my first foray into multisport, and then that obviously it's been in me now. When I then transitioned to triathlon.
Yeah. So from that, then, what did you do next? What was the next sport?
Well, I was still playing netball and still playing tennis well into my 30s and 40s.
Right.
And then in my 40s I met my now husband, and who was a very good sailor, and previously not having any interest in sailing whatsoever. It was quite strange because it coincided with a good friend of mine decided to go dinghy sailing and asked me to go with her. And to cut a long story short, she ended up giving up and I carried on. So then I bought a couple of dinghies and went to the local reservoir and was practising. And then I met my now husband, who had actually been a world-class sailor.
Right.
He sailed in the World Championships, in the Hobie World Championships in the 70s. So, and I sort of little mini me saying, would you like to go sailing? I think I was sort of well below capabilities. And then really we did, we sort of pushed the boat out, so to speak, and we bought a very high performance dinghy between us, which has a twin trapeze, so you have to hang out on the gunwale of the boat to balance it. And it had a small spinnaker, which is an extra sail on the front, which was my job to pull in and out. We used to practice a lot with it because it was very kind of tippy, and in fact the people at the sailing club used to watch us, and I think they were putting money on how many times we were going to capsize. And we went on and we did sort of the UK circuits and the national championships in that, and you know we ended up doing quite well. But yes, that was. In fact, it needed me to be. I did do some boxing. I went to a guy that was a boxing coach locally. Well, he is ex-professional. I used to train a lot with a boxer, you know, mainly for upper body strength, which was needed for dinghy sailing. So I sort of upped my training really to try and improve my dinghy sailing skills, as it were.
Yeah, cool. And Chris is still sailing. So after obviously, do you still sail a bit with Chris?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you've still got that.
Yes, yeah.
So how did we get into? Was there anything else between sailing and finding triathlon then?
Well, No, I don't think there is, because I was in my probably mid-40s, late 40s, when we decided. I'd had quite a nasty accident with the boat, which was a hospital visit.
What happened there then?
Yeah, we were in some very heavy winds at the time, and I swung. Well, the boat tipped, and I swung round and basically kissed the mast.
Right.
Into free fall. So it was kind of put me off a little bit, but in that sense, it got to the point where we were getting a bit long in the tooth for sailing that particular boat.
Yeah.
And we decided to call it a day. And after that, one of my member of my family did the London Triathlon in, I think it must have been in, about 99, 98, 99, somewhere like that. And I remember going down to watch it and thinking, well, I quite like the look of this, you know. I can't ride a bike, but I can soon learn to ride a bike.
Yeah.
I can do swimming, I can do the running. And so that really, it was about 48 or 49 when I started triathlon.
Right.
And I just joined our local triathlon club. And then the rest is history, really.
Yeah. Was that Grimsby?
Yes. Yeah. It was. It just barely been founded by a local doctor, and I was slightly embarrassed because it was quite male orientated.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
And I think there was only about probably 3 ladies that were members, and I can remember going out on their cycling. I kept getting continuously dropped off the back of the group because obviously the guys were quite good cyclists, and you know I'd probably turn up an hour later in the pub. You know, are you all right then, Karen?
Well, that's standard, isn't it? When you're just learning, you're going out with an established group. Well, people that can cycle. You know, it is what it is, isn't it?
So I used to rumble in about half an hour later when everybody had gotten on the second pint.
So what events did you do in the early days then? What was around? Because I can't imagine it was very, very sort of like popular or well-known sport.
No, it wasn't. The first event I ever did was Driffield Triathlon, and I got a DQ for running round the playing field in the wrong direction. So it wasn't a very encouraging start. And I did a few local triathlons. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then I went to do the down to Rotherham to do a multi-sport festival down there, and it was then at that triathlon that I realised that I was quite competitive. There was some age groupers sort of emerging.
Was that the first time you come across age groupers?
Yes, it was.
Did nobody in the club?
No.
There wasn't?
No. There was somebody at Rotherham that said to me, in fact they're still around now, said to me, "Oh, you're quite good, why don't you do age grouping?" So of course I said, "Oh, well, what's that?" And they said, "Well, look at your time, you know, you sort of in your age group, you're second or third, I can't remember exactly, but they said your time's really good, why don't you do a qualification race?" And that's how it.
So back in those days,
because
there was computers.
Yeah.
Did you find out from the computers then?
Yes.
Because now you can just go on, can't you? And find all the information you need. Was it the same?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. It was, you could, they had it all up and running.
Yeah, it was your old Amstrad computers.
Yeah. No, that was pretty good then. Yeah. So it wasn't too difficult to find out what you needed to do.
No, you didn't. You certainly didn't get the results as quick as you do now. You know, and even live, in fact. Yeah. You had to sort of wait, you know, a week or so before you could see that.
Yeah.
But obviously at the event you got a time and what have you. So.
And was there less women in racing then?
There was less women in racing then.
Yeah.
And yes, there was less women.
Yeah.
And then even if you look at the groups in the age group racing then compared to now, it was tiny.
Yeah.
Really tiny.
Yeah.
And you know, the briefings were always on a beach or in a local bar. And there's nothing like nowadays when you're in a conference hall or whatever. So it was so much more relaxed in those days. You know, it's a little bit more formal now because the age group teams are so big.
Yeah, more competition, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's probably because triathlon in itself or multisport in itself become more popular and it's more accessible, I guess.
Yeah, and I also think that the Brownlee brothers did a lot.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think they brought the focus.
Yeah, I think from 2012 and the Olympics, that was the kickstarter, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was,
Not only for triathlon, multisport, but also for cycling as well, I think it was the same, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So what was, how did you decide what you were going to qualify for your first, and what race did you have to do to qualify?
Yes, I did. Yeah, they did do qualifying races in those days.
Yeah.
And the first one that I qualified was in Spain, in Pontevedra.
Right.
And that was a bit of an eye-opener for the first time round.
And how did it feel when well, obviously you did your qualifying race, you qualified, and you got your suit and everything. How did that feel when you'd actually done it?
Well, actually, it was quite exhilarating.
Yeah.
It was quite exhilarating thinking, well, I've got a GB suit, you know. And obviously the family were quite thrilled. In fact, my mother was very thrilled.
I bet she was, yeah.
Yeah, she was very thrilled when it happened. And yes, the actual event was exhilarating as well because it was all new, it was all exciting, and it was in a different country.
Yeah. So from that first race to now, what sort of changed? Like, was it harder back then to get it all set up and take your bike over and everything, or was it just the same as it is today?
Yeah, well, it's really just the
The
same.
same.
Yes. And I remember in Pontevedra, the brownies were racing.
Were there?
Yeah. And so, of course, everybody, once we'd finished, we went to
Went and
watch
watched,
them. Yeah,
yeah.
it was very, very hot.
Yeah.
And, but yes, I mean, there were several other races that I did during that time, but I just wanted to really be the best I could be.
Yeah.
For you know.
And I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? Being the best you can be on the day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I just think that it's good to have life in perspective. For me, it's not all about triathlon. It's about other things as well.
Yeah.
Triathlon is one of them, and I've got other interests, and I just think it's a really nice balance to have, to do other things other than triathlon.
Yeah, because it can become all encompassing, can't it? You know.
It can be, and I know some very good athletes, certainly of my age group, some very, very good athletes, and it can be all encompassing. But it depends how you prioritise life.
Yeah.
Do you want? I don't want to be spending every hour of my day training.
No.
But I do enough to satisfy myself.
Yeah. And stay fit and healthy.
Yes.
That's the key, isn't it?
That it is
really?
The key, Richard. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And I personally love the diversification of the three sports, where you're not just doing one. You can actually, well, if you don't feel like going for a run, you can go for a swim, or vice versa, right? You can go for a bike ride, and it doesn't have to be anything to do with like your plan or anything. You just go out, can't you?
Just go out and enjoy yourself. Yeah, exactly.
And the people you meet as well, I think it's.
Yeah, I mean, I've met loads of people in triathlon, and really interesting. I mean, in the early days, particularly, I had to focus on my swim a little bit to try and improve my swim. I was taught in the old swimming methods in the 60s, early 60s, the swimming, which has changed. In fact, it's a learned thing with me now. It's the old keyhole pull with the front crawl, which has completely changed now. So that was difficult to try and, in fact, I probably still do it a little bit. It's difficult to try and unlearn that, having been taught that as a child. So yeah, there's. But I think the fact that you have, or I have been involved so much doing different sports, you can do anything you want. You can do anything you want that you put your mind to.
Yeah, and that's a great attitude to have as well. An outlook.
Yeah, you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it.
Yeah. So how many times have you represented GB now?
11.
11 times.
Yeah.
And what's been your favourite race?
One was unofficial. I actually started but didn't finish because I ended up in hospital in Austria.
I remember that.
So that I've actually included that one,
yeah.
which I was a starter, but I certainly wasn't a finisher.
No.
So
what's been your favourite race?
I think my favourite race was probably in Turkey. That was, and it certainly was my favourite party afterwards. It was an absolutely fantastic party we had afterwards. They absolutely pushed the boats out. They really did. It was like a wedding reception.
Really?
It was brilliant. Yeah.
So if the Turkish do another triathlon, get over there.
Get over there, Richard.
Because they know how to celebrate.
Oh yeah, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
You've done really well this year, haven't you?
Yes,
You've done
not
really
bad.
well. You entered 3 age group races.
I did.
And you've qualified for all 3.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you determine, usually, what races that you want to enter?
You mean the international ones?
Yeah,
or the
for GB. Say you want to go and qualify for. How do you work out what race you want to go and race?
Well, really, I don't really kind of have any particular plan as such. I've a kind of a loose plan, if you like. But I I think what you have to look at is what you're good at. You know, what you're best at in the terms of distances.
Yeah.
I'm not a long distance fan,
No.
and that proved it when I once did a middle distance, and I thought, I'm not too keen on this.
Yeah.
It's a bit long for me.
Yeah.
I've probably got more fast twitch than slow twitch, really, and so I've sort of stuck to the standard and sprint distances. I probably haven't gone round the ring with it. I think I probably now prefer the sprint distance to the standard distance. But having said that, I just think it just pushes me a little bit more to do a slightly longer distance. It's only really the I've probably given out secrets to my competitors, but it's only really because my weakest discipline is really my run, believe it or not. And so
that is a bit strange, actually, considering where you come from, your background. That you know, we've come full circle, haven't we? Because it goes back to your parents and how
everybody
good
says,
athletes they
what
were.
happened there then?
Yeah, what happened there? Yeah. That is weird, because it's normally you take those traits on, isn't it? The genetics are there, and you.
Yeah.
But that must just mean that your swimming and biting's fabulous.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Not sure about that. But anyway, it gets me by.
Does more than get you by. I mean, like you say, you qualified for the 3 that you went in, so that's really good.
Yeah.
And how did COVID and not being able to race affect you?
Didn't affect me at all.
No.
I just carried on. I had a break from training, which for me is really important psychologically, not to have to think, I've got to train today. And I'm sure everybody goes through it. Sometimes you get up in the morning, you just don't want to train. And I had a bit of a break, knowing that there were no races happening. So I really concentrated on my other hobbies, and sort of spent more time developing that, really. But during the winters, I just sort of was on a maintenance program, so that it just kept up my swim, bike and run fitness, but on quite a low level. When I did notice though, this year when I did the first qualifying race back in May, that it does certainly affect your fitness when you're not competing. And I found that first race, actually, although it was only sprint distance, I found it quite tough. So you do lose that race sharpness that was, I suppose, COVID affected, but it was no big deal compared to what else was going on in the world.
And it's the same for everybody as well. We're all on that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, if you had any advice to give to new athletes who want to get into triathlon and people in triathlon who want to do age group, what would you suggest?
Well, the first thing I would definitely suggest is to somebody coming in is to join a club, because you get lots and lots of support from your club members. And also it gives you open to coaching sessions and advice that club members can give you. I think it probably would be really difficult to try to race age group, not having come from a club background. So that's what I would say, absolutely. A club is your first port of call.
Yeah, it's great advice. And have you always been in a club yourself?
Yes, I have. Yes, or everything that I've really done, I've come from a club background of some description. I think it's quite important sometimes to have that support if you're maybe going through a bit of a rough phase, you know, in your training, or you're injured, or you know, anything like that. I think it's important that you get the support from your club mates to get you through that, and then back on your feet again to back racing.
Yeah, it's certainly a booster when you're feeling a bit. And the other thing is, for me, with Kate being into triathlon as well, you know, we can pull each other through.
Yes.
You know, like
yeah.
one night she might come in and I don't feel like going swimming, and she's going swimming, and that gives me a kick up the arse to say, just go along and do it.
Definitely.
You know, so that helps as well.
I'm afraid my husband doesn't. He said tells me that triathlon's boring.
But it's each to their own, isn't it?
As a spectator sport, makes me laugh.
Yeah.
But then saying that, he's very good at supporting in other ways. You know, he's sort of, particularly on the bike, he's quite a good cyclist himself. So on the bike front, definitely. He tends to sort of choose whether or not to come with me to any of the international events, but it all depends whether, if it focuses around a marina, he's there.
Well, you've got to get something out of it himself, hasn't he?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
I mean, I can understand where he's coming from saying it's boring, because on some courses you go out on the swim, you don't see it. You go out on the bike, you don't see it, and even some of the runs, you don't. It's only when they pass you or they cross the finish line you don't see it. But some of them, like we were at Targu Muirs, and that was great because it was just loops.
Yes.
It was a duathlon as well, so there was no swim, but the kids and Kate could see us running around, and you know, that's probably the best race for that. For spectators is.
I think after the episode in Austria, I think that put him off for life, really.
Yeah, because I guess you just feel so helpless, don't you?
Absolutely, Richard.
So what's your favourite bit of kit that you've got?
Bit of kit?
Yeah.
Oh. I suppose my favourite bit of kit, I suppose, would be my bike. I guess everyone must say that.
Yeah, that's been the most common answer.
It's about the biggest thing that we own, isn't it?
Yeah.
And probably the most thing that we spend most of our money on.
I think so, absolutely.
I've got a bike actually that I rode in the 2013 World Championships in London, and going back there, that was another one of my favourite races. But that was brilliant because all the family could come down and watch. And I've got another bike going back to 2013, which I still have, and it still is as good as the most up-to-date one I have. So it's not about the bike, it's about the engine that's driving it.
I like that, yeah, you've still got to put the effort in. Doesn't matter if you've got all the fancy kit, if you haven't done the training, you're going to get found out, aren't you? Yeah. What are your favourite resources to books or blogs or podcasts or that you go to for information and to help?
I'm actually a great fan of keeping things simple, and I'm not into all this sort of blogging and stuff on, sort of bigs up different training methods and that kind of thing. Or you do this differently, you'll race faster. And I think the big thing is consistency and keeping it simple. I don't think there's really anything more I can say. That if I need any advice, I generally ask one of my friends in the triathlon club, or somebody that could help me in that way. I suppose with having, it's a difference between having an athletic background and a non-athletic background, in that your athletic background tends to provide you with most of the answers, whereas somebody coming from a non-athletic background would need more support in the help in coaching and the blog and maybe magazines. They needed perhaps to, to get information. If I've got any specific, it's the best thing to do really is to try and ask somebody who's an expert in that field if you really want to ask a question. And the
answer they're going to give you.
Well,
the answer they'll give you depends.
Depends on
the amount of things that I've listened to and the experts that come on, and they all say it depends.
Yeah, it does.
Because everybody's different.
Yeah.
That's fair enough, isn't it? I think it's experience as well, isn't it?
It is.
You know, the longer you've been doing this, the more experience you have, and you know what works and what doesn't work. So,
But having said that, I still make silly errors.
But even
in racing,
even the pros do that.
I still think, oh, why didn't I do that? Or I always do that. Why did I change it? They got to. But then that's all part of the palette, if you like, of racing.
It is.
A little bit to talk about, a bit different,
So, last question is, what are your short and long-term goals?
The short-term goals is my short-term goal is to try and knock 30 seconds a minute off my 5k run time.
Right.
But I'm not going to put myself on the line. It's not that important to me. But it'd be wonderful if I did. But then you've got to come with the consistency of training. But my long-term goal really, I suppose, is to improve my position in the field, if I can, with the amount of time I've got and the resources I've got. If I can, I'll be delighted. If not, I'll just carry on, enjoy, meet some new people, and keep healthy and fit.
And enjoying the process.
Yes, enjoy the process.
Fabulous. Well, thank you ever so much for taking your time out today and sharing your story. It's been great to listen. I know you're a club mate, but I didn't know all of that, so even for me to learn a bit more about you is great. So thank you ever so much.
You're very welcome.
What a great chat we had. Few cups of coffee. She even bought me some roasted coffee beans round, because on our track sessions on a Saturday morning we invite people back to ours, and we grind our own coffee beans and make everybody some nice coffee. So she's always threatened on bringing some coffee beans round, and sure enough she did. So that was funny. But yeah, great story. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. She's a fantastic lady, and she's done so much, and like I said, she's qualified for 3 races next year. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So yeah, somebody to look up to. She inspires us all in our club, and it's great having her around. So, lifestyle hack for episode 35 is water. And I've listened to quite a range of stuff about water, and I came to realise how important this stuff is, especially in our bodies, as we're made up of about 80% of it. So what type of water we consume seems to really matter. So after learning a little bit more, I decided to get myself a TDS meter and do some testing. And for those of you who don't know what a TDS is, it's a bit of kit that measures total dissolved solids, and this can range from between 0 up to over 1,000. And the higher the score, the more dissolved solids you've got in your water. Now this just gives you an actual reading, like quantitative reading, but it doesn't actually tell you what those solids are. and tap water, they generally add quite a lot of different things to it, such as chlorine and fluoride, to get rid of all the nasty bugs and things that the water has to go through. So I tested my own water, which was round about 400 ppm, parts per million, and then I got a range of bottled waters and tried those out, and they've come out between 75 and about 300. But again, we still don't know what those TDSs are, just that it's a lower quantity. So my reckoning is that if you buy a good mineral water, then from a reliable source, so it's bottled at source, then you can be pretty sure that the TDSs in there will be natural minerals, and they shouldn't have added anything in there. But unless you got your water tested, you'll not actually know. And I haven't done that. So that's that part of it, and I'm quite happy. I'm drinking bottled water now. The thing I'm not so much happy about is that all the bottled waters that I've come across are in plastic. Now, the issue with plastic is several-fold, and the biggest one is the environmental aspect of it, where, yeah, some of it gets recycled, but a lot of it doesn't, and a lot of it isn't able to. The second issue I've got with plastic bottles and water is that the plastic bottles themselves leak microscopic synthetic polymer particles into the water. So I've found out. So that's not good for us either. So the best thing is to try and source your water, if you were going to go down this route, either from source, which for me isn't really available, because when I went on to springwater.com, the nearest one was in Cheshire, which is a bit of a trek to go and get your water, or buy glass bottled water. And to be honest, there isn't that much about, and it's mega expensive. So unfortunately at the moment I'm having to compromise, and although the water is better than tap water, unfortunately what it's in isn't, and that's the compromise. And I'm hoping, and I don't know this, it's just like I say, it's a hack. I'm hoping that the water that we're drinking in the bottles is better for us than the water out of our taps. And one day I might do a test to see actually which is the best. So that's it. So that's the lifestyle hack. Quite a lot to think about. So that's it for another episode. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed Karen's story, and thank you again for listening. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can drop us an email at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram, direct messages at amp_1967. You can follow us on Facebook at ampgb, and you can listen to all the other podcasts at our website, which is agegroupmultisportpodcast.buzzsprout.com. You can also find us on YouTube at ampgb, and we're on Twitter at Age Group Multisport Podcast. And that's it for another episode. So just remember, stay safe, keep training, and love the